Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about Cold War Dungeons and Dragons and a return to Cold War Dungeons and Dragons. So, February 23rd, Vladimir Putin chooses to invade. According to the New York Times, Vladimir Putin chooses to invade Ukraine, simultaneously attacks a dozen cities with missiles, and simultaneously air brings in air, ground, and sea forces, okay, and invades Ukraine, according to the New York Times. Okay, so this changes the world of Dungeons and Dragons, and the biggest thing that's being decided right now for Dungeons and Dragons community, for every dungeon master and every Dungeons and Dragons player, is: are we going? There seems to be two states. Are we going to be playing a year from now? Are we playing Cold War Dungeons and Dragons, which is a return for the Dungeons and Dragons community, for some members of the Dungeons and Dragons community, to a state we've already been in, right? Or are we in Hot War Dungeons and Dragons, right? And these are fundamentally different. So Cold War Dungeons and Dragons, it's the miniatures on the shelves. It's everybody at a table. It's snacks, right? Hot War Dungeons and Dragons is a few index cards, some golf pencils, and one set of dice carried in the bottom of your go bag, and the books aren't even there. Like the monster manual, the PHB, and the DMG are in your heart, and you play on the run, right? Like and not only are you're not wondering if your players are at the table, or the players are going to be able to make the game. You wonder if your players exist, right? That's where we're at. That's what Vladimir Putin just put the entire Dungeons and Dragons community on notice, right? I am splitting the world. There's the days before February 23rd, 2022, when you believed that the developed nations that were next to you would not take your liberty and your lives, right? Those days are gone now, right? Like every developed nation is looking right, left, up, down, and saying, is this nation going to attack us? And are we going to be in exactly the same? Every dungeon master in every nation now is looking, northwest, is looking east, west, north, south, and saying, is the developed nation up there, over there, are they an actual civilized global member? Are they actually a member of the global civilized community, or are they a nation of barbarism? Right, and they will just lash out and attack immediately, right? And every people are losing sleep. People are wondering: are we in the Archduke Ferdinand world, or are we in a Cold War world? Our best hope now is Cold War Dungeons and Dragons, right? Now, there's a great line in there's a classic Batman Nolan trilogy. You have Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. In Dark Knight Rises, Bane says to Batman, "Oh, you think the darkness is your ally, right? You think you adapted to the dark. I was born in it, right?" And now there's a split within the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition community of, the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition community, because it's such a special version, right? It has Gen Zs, millennials, it has Gen Xers, it has boomers, all playing that version, right? There's, now there are still boomers, maybe a few Gen Xers playing at the macro level, playing Dungeons & Dragons 1E and 2E, but Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has multiple generations playing it, right? Some of those generations know what Cold War Dungeons & Dragons looks like because they lived through it, right? It was the 70s, it was the 80s, and it was the 90s, the very tip of the beginning of the 90s, right? The Cold War Dungeons and Dragons is not horrific. But it is strained, right? So one of the things right now is there are massive changes coming to Dungeons and Dragons. Regardless, we don't live in the same world we did before, right? One of the things that's going to start to happen and start to shape the way we play Dungeons and Dragons is just this idea of our entire world is about to be reshaped, right? There's these really interesting concepts like Defund the Police that came out in 2019's 2020, actually 2020, and then maybe some 2021. There's this idea of defund the police, right? It came out. It was, it was interesting, right? That it's like what's about to happen is an absolutely massive spike, right, in military spending across every developed nation, like double or triple the numbers, right? America we're gonna take it through the roof, right? Like the weapons they're gonna build from Vladimir Putin's choices are just gonna dwarf everything that came before it. Like you thought there was a military industrial complex before. Wait till you see what happens now. And guess what? They're gonna take all that surplus. They're gonna take all the stuff that's just a year or two old, right? Which will be considered useless junk compared to what they're about to build, right? And they're going to give it to the police departments, right? It's already happened, right? So the idea of defund the police is ludicrous. The police are about to get top gear, like military industrial complex handoffs, right? We see a little bit of this in my family. I have an older son he's down in Maryland. He works and he's been doing great in his job. He just stacks money like pancakes. Like it's incredible. And he sheds laptops, and like my kids have his younger siblings have consoles and the things you put on your eyes, right? Like the I'm blanking now. The video games that cover your eyes, right? And they basically very high-end mobile phones and all these incredible resources. He just sheds extra tech, like scales off a dragon, right? And his kids and his younger siblings get all his handoffs, and they're like, this is amazing. Like this like disposed of relic, from my older brother is better than anything I own, right? And that's exactly what's going to happen with every police department in America, right? Like virtually every in any major city. It's going to be it's incredible, right? And so the reality is we are about to go back to if we're lucky, we're about to go back to Cold War Dungeons and Dragons. And and I've been calling for this for a long time, and I feel like as we go forward into the future, everything I was calling for, the need for it becomes more and more dramatically clear to everyone, right? I've been saying there's a need for the older generation to come in and play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition so they can explain what's happening in the world, right, to the millennials and the Gen Zs who are playing, right? And I'm saying, hey, don't waste your time on Dungeons & Dragons 1E and 2E. Your wisdom is needed here, right? Because right now, the Gen Zs and the millennials have no idea what's coming. They don't know what Cold War Dungeons & Dragons looks like. But you do if you're playing 1E and 2E, right? So stop the selfishness, drop the 1E, drop the 2E, and get over to 1E so that people can actually have a clue and can avoid some of the pitfalls that we saw in Cold War Dungeons & Dragons. Because Vladimir Putin has given us Cold War Dungeons & Dragons back, right? If it's Hot War, Dungeons & Dragons, yeah, it'll barely matter if you're playing 1E or 2E. But if we get Cold War Dungeons & Dragons, you need to be on. If you play 1E and 2E now, right, you need to move up to 5E. The reason why I'm not mentioning 3, 5, and 4E is those groups are incredibly small, right? But there's a significant number of incredible talent on the 1E and the 2E side, and we are going into Cold War Dungeons & Dragons again. There are distinct shapes. There are distinct problems. There are distinct, right, issues that are going to happen for Gen Zs and millennials in Cold War Dungeons & Dragons that they're about to play that they have no idea of, right? They're Batman. They're skilled. They have some stuff. But, They weren't born in the dark the way we were. We know what Cold War Dungeons and Dragons looks like, right? We know the issues that we're going to face, and we can save them an incredible amount of pain and confusion by dropping our selfish play of 1E and 2E and moving to 5E, right? If you're out there and you remember Cold War Dungeons and Dragons, right? There's a call to you. There's a call to you from Gary Gygax. He showed in our lives we need to put down our selfishness. We need to sacrifice, right? So if we honor him, we do what's needed now. We understand a sense of urgency. And if you are a Dungeons and Dragons 1E, 2E dungeon master who saw Cold War Dungeons and Dragons before and knows the pitfalls that are coming, right? And knows how to avoid them and make a good, joyful game in a world that is a burning platform, you need to sacrifice and move to where you're needed, which is Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Thank you.